Hey, hey, welcome back to another episode of the She's Making an Impact podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Ngom. Today, we get to talk about building your email list with quizzes as a lead magnet, which is brilliant. So, I brought on the quiz queen herself, Jo Ellis. Jo Ellis is the quiz queen and helps entrepreneurs create fun quizzes that speak to their ideal customer. Jo, what's going on?
Hey Rachel, how are you?
I'm good. It's so nice to see your beautiful face. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's start off. Just tell us a little bit about you and how you got into creating quizzes and have this be your thing.
Mm. Okay, so as you know, I was in the first round of your group coaching program, Activate.
Woohoo!
And when I was in that program, I was like doing a whole bunch of things for work. Like I was doing writing and I was doing graphics and I was doing Pinterest and um, I had a lot of different clients and it was all over the place. And, I'm not the best focused person anyway. So it was a bit crazy. And then we had a group call one day and I noticed that I put this quiz up on this client's website and it was just her most popular pin, like, by far, kind of 5 to 1 kind of thing. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll look at doing quizzes as a niche. And, that sort of came up for me during a group call. And I got such great feedback from everyone that I just decided to go with that. So, yeah, that's it really. And I think for someone um, who thinks, like through having conversations with other people and who comes up with their best ideas when they're having conversations, that sort of program is so valuable.
Totally. The value of just having other entrepreneurs that are there to brainstorm with you
Yeah.
is like priceless. So I'm so happy you had that like breakthrough moment and this is what you do now. Awesome. I love your niche. So talk to us about quizzes and why they're such effective lead magnets.
Hmm. So quizzes are really typically convert really well, and that's for a few reasons. So, firstly, I think because they're so fun, like people really love doing them, and it sounds really simple and maybe a bit silly, but I don't think you can underestimate the value that that has because if you have someone who's taking your quiz and they're having a lot of fun doing it, it doesn't feel like you're marketing to them and it doesn't feel that you're selling to them. And, there's nothing wrong with selling to people, but when they've just come across you or they've just come across your website and they don't really understand the connection between their problem and, your sort of product or service, then marketing that doesn't really feel like marketing, that feels like fun,
Yeah,
is so valuable, right? Yeah.
totally.
Also because there's a real social nature associated with quizzes. I remember doing, sitting around a teen magazine doing quizzes with my friends, and I think that that kind of social nature, but translates really well to being very shareable in a digital kind of world,
Mhm.
which is, what you want in a lead magnet or your content,
Yeah.
something that people are going to share on their own. Also, the power of self-discovery, like people are just, so interested in themselves, not in a bad way, but it's, we all have to look out for ourselves and we all want to know more about ourselves. So,
Mhm.
just having a quiz that can tell people more about themselves is really great. And also because it's interactive. So, when you've got a general lead magnet, a PDF or tips that you might download, that's great, but it doesn't have those sort of features where you can customize, the results of the quiz to the person's answers. Um, you can, you might even have one product, just one product to offer them, and that's fine. But you can say, well, this is the stage that you're at. You have a puppy, so you're going to be interested in these particular aspects of my book or my training program or whatever. And you can use those points to talk to them about that. And you can also segment your audience really well. So you can, divide them into you can divide them by gender or the stage of their business journey, just whatever makes sense for your niche.
Amazing. How would you segment based off of the quiz results? Can you give an
Yeah. So
example?
you just say you're segmenting by gender, then you have men and women, and you might want to talk to them differently. Like if you're selling men's shirts, you might want to talk to women differently about that because chances are they're not buying them for themselves.
Mhm.
So you can just add a tag in your in your email provider and
Mhm.
in the quiz backend system where you just you tag them with a woman or whatever else you're using to segment with, and then you can just write emails specifically for them.
Cool. I like it. Does it take a lot of thought and energy to set up a quiz? What should be like the first steps and how should we go about this process?
Mm. It does and it doesn't. Like there are some mistakes to avoid, so
Mhm.
I'll go through those. The first one is not really thinking about the offer that you want to have at the end of your quiz, because
Mhm.
your quiz is kind of like a bridge. Like the person has their problem over here and you have your solution over here, and you want the quiz to kind of be a little roadmap between those two.
Mhm.
Um, the second one, and I think this is probably a mistake in email marketing in general, is collecting people's email addresses and then not following up with them. So,
Mhm.
yeah. um, and then thirdly, not using the right software. So there's a lot of different software out there, and there's a lot of good ones. Um, but I think for beginners, I really recommend Interact, and that's because it's so easy to use, it's affordable, it's really aimed at beginners. It has a nice integration with Giphy, so you can drop GIFs in your questions, your answers, your
Nice.
results. But more, it's specifically designed for lead generation quizzes because there are a few other programs which aren't designed especially for lead generation quizzes, and then it's not exactly designed for that, so you don't kind of get the best results. The fourth thing is that people can create the quiz elements in the wrong order. So I really like to start with the quiz title.
Mhm.
And the quiz title is, it's your hook. It's what's going to get people interested in. And it's, like when you write a blog article, you spend so much time looking at the headline, because
Yep.
if people if people don't get past that, then they're nowhere. So the same with your quiz title. It has to be really compelling. It has to be like a really interesting question, um, something that they want to know about. Um, and then starting with your results. So rather than doing the questions next, having your results, so that you have different categories that people can fall into.
Mhm.
And after then, your questions. And your questions are really the things that are going to make your person feel seen and heard and understood. So you're really wanting to be putting some language in there that is language that they might use when they're talking about their problem, or when they're talking about, um, how they're going to feel after they've solved their problem, when you're talking about what kind of things they've already done to try and solve their problem. But your questions also want to be able to sort of create demand for your product. So
Mm.
that's really important as well. So I have the kind of a three-step approach to designing quizzes, where in the first step you do the quiz design and you look at all those elements. Um, the second step, you create a really killer follow-up sequence where you're really introducing people to how you can help them. And thirdly, just learning how to promote your quiz. That's obviously something that you want to do well.
Okay, so I have so many questions right now, but which one should we start? Okay, how many potential answers should we have?
Hmm. So you should have 3 to 5 categories for the
Okay.
end result of the quiz. So therefore, you're going to have about 3 to 5 answers for every question.
What if you're someone who's not super creative? Like in my head, I'm like, oh, this would not be my zone of genius. So what should we do if we're like, how do we even
Yeah.
start?
Well, I guess then you have the option to hire out for some help,
Okay.
or or just have a look around. So I really recommend that people look at different quizzes in their niche. Not to copy them word for word, question for question, but there's so many different ways you can put a quiz together. So you can definitely take elements from what else is out there, but also looking at the content in your niche that's shared the most, like the most sort of viral content in your niche, will
Ooh.
often give you really good ideas for quizzes.
Yeah. Where do we find that?
Pinterest is awesome.
Aha.
Yeah, Pinterest is really awesome for quizzes. Also the just BuzzSumo, those type
Okay.
of websites. Google,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So we have a quiz created. Where do we promote it? How do we actually have people find our quiz?
Well, you can promote it a bunch of different ways. Pinterest is great, obviously, as I mentioned before. Um, Facebook ads, when people do Facebook ads for quizzes, they generally find that they convert a lot cheaper than other lead magnets.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it just depends what you're at and where you're used to promoting things. You can ask other people to share it for you. Obviously, you can share it on LinkedIn, Instagram, all the socials. There's a number of different strategies, and it really does depend what strategies you're used to using for your business anyway.
Mhm. Got it. Can you give us some examples of different quizzes that you've created for different niches just to get like our minds
Mhm.
brainstorming a little bit of what we could create?
Yeah, so I created a quiz for someone else who is in Activate, um, Courtney Anderson. So her quiz is,
Awesome.
yeah, so her niche is, as how to get sober, how to stay sober vibe. Um, so her quiz is all about, what can you do to get sober forever? What's the kind of steps that you can take? What's stopping you from getting sober forever?
Hmm.
Um, Another quiz I um, co-created for someone was her business is called Fuel for Fat Loss, and so her quiz was all about, what's your sort of dieting personality? Um,
Ooh, that's interesting.
yeah, that was
I
a
would
really
totally take that and be like, just like, I'd be so interested of like, what is my personality when it comes to this? Interesting.
Mhm.
Can you give us like maybe two more examples?
So one of my quizzes that I created was, who's your what's it called? Are you ready for your soulmate client? Or are you just kind of doing the
Uh-huh.
wrong thing to attract them? And another example, sort of how happy are you is a good one for coaches, one that I did for a coach, and that worked out really well. I think that was the first quiz I created, actually, the
Awesome.
one that did well on Pinterest. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to summarize a lot of the main concepts that you talked about. So you start with a program like Try Interact to
Mm.
create the quiz. And is it free or how much did you say it was?
It's about $17 a month if you're
Okay.
paying annually. So it's pretty um, cheap to start off with on their basic plan. But you can absolutely get started with Interact for free, and they will only want you to start your um, trial when you set up your email integration. So when you want your quiz to collect email addresses for you.
Got it. Okay. So we start with the program like Try Interact, and then we create our quiz title. And so we like just the idea for the quiz, create the title that's going to grab their attention and actually
Mm.
get them to take the quiz and take action. Then we start with the end in mind of like where do we want people to actually go.
Yeah.
So if we want them to sign up for a program or book a strategy call or like where you want them to go, you create the category, the result categories, and then you create the questions that will lead to those categories. Is that about
Mm.
summing it up?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh,
And not
okay.
every not every question has to link to the result. That's what a
Okay,
bit of
that's good to know. So it'd
a
just
bit
be
of
like a
a
fun question or
yeah, it could be a fun question. It could be really about um, making them feel like you understand them
Mhm.
because you're using their language to talk about their problem.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, yeah.
Got it. And oh, I didn't ask you how many questions should you have?
About seven is a good amount. So
7.
you
Okay,
want
so you don't want to have like 20. 20 is too many.
I've seen some that are like 200 questions.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that's yeah, for a marketing quiz you want about 7 because you want it to take like 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay. And then what should the follow-up sequence look like?
The follow-up sequence should look much like your normal sort of follow-up sequence. So it could be 5, 7 kind of emails.
Mhm.
It should have those elements of social proof. So how you help people, you know, an introduction email about you,
Mhm.
and it should, you know, introduce the offer. So when you decide which offer you want to promote in your nurture sequence, it should be like, you know, the offer that people buy the most, or your sort of baby offer that, you know, the one that people will get started with.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then for that nurture sequence, that set of follow-up emails, does every email need to be corresponding with one of the result categories, or can just like the first email be specific to that result and then the rest be more generalized, or how would you set that up?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think just the first email could be, unless they're wildly different and you do want to talk to the, you know, that particular person very differently, in which case you could easily set up, you know, 4 different sequences. But yeah,
Mhm.
and you do want to include those results again because people might want to go back and look.
Got it. And do you suggest having it set up where they take the quiz and they see the results right away, or they take the quiz and then they need to enter their name and email to actually see the results?
Yeah. So usually you would have it set up so that people enter their email and their name, like that, and then get the result.
And then get the results. Got it. Awesome. What did I miss?
I think that's it. The quizzes.
I think that's a good like
Pretty
jump start.
comprehensive.
Yeah, did I
Yeah.
miss anything or cool. Okay. What's the best book that you've read?
I just finished Chillpreneur
Ooh.
a while ago. Have you seen it?
I've never heard of that one. That's new.
It's cool. It's like,
Killpreneur. I like it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I love that one. And yeah,
Cool. Well, what does it mean to you to make an impact?
to me, to make an impact, like I think that, you know, being an entrepreneur has so many opportunities for self-development and, you know, for people to really reach their potential and step into what they're meant to do rather than working a job which is, you know, might not be exactly aligned with their interests. Um, but I also think that there has to be some sort of, or for me, there has to be this element of recognizing that, you know, not everyone has the same opportunities, and it's just not that people are less fortunate, it's that there's actual structural inequality in the world like racism, and that, you know, making an impact is about sort of addressing that, um, you know, uneven playing field and making sure that people do have the chance to reach their potential.
I love that. And I love your heart. Oh my gosh, you're just such a huge blessing in my life. So thank you. Where can we connect with you?
I've got a free quiz guide which you can download at freequizguide.com, and then I'm also at Your Quiz Queen.
I just got to say, you're such a good student, and that's amazing. I'm so happy you had such an easy to remember URL, and that's such a perfect freebie to offer. So make sure to go to freequizguide.com to grab Joe's free quiz guide. That's amazing. Joe, I adore you. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much.